everyone, today in this video I'm going to be checking out the ECOVACS DEEBOT T30S. If you're interested in this product or you want to find out more about it, the link to it will be in the video description. The T30S is available as the T30S and the T30S combo. The combo unit's really cool. That's what you'll see in this video. That has an additional compartment that stores a handheld vacuum that also self-empties, and you can use it to clean your couch, cushions, tables, things where your RoboVac can't go. Let's go ahead, let's jump right in and try this thing out. So how does our T30S stack up against the competition? We'll be comparing it not only within ECOVACS brand product lineup, but also against all RoboVacs that we've personally tested. That number is, I believe, over 60 units and counting. So let's look at some key performance metrics, indicators, and tests. First up, max suction power measured in PAs. This vacuum comes in at 11,000 PAs. That's some, if not the highest we've ever seen. It really seems like they've really pushed a corner after 5,000-6,000. They've really doubled that to 10, 11, 12,000 PAs. So that's going to be top of the line suction power available today. You'll notice that's about 5,000 PAs more than ECOVAC's average lineup, and pretty substantial. It's going to be about 6,100 PAs more than your average RoboVac. Next, let's talk about max CFM. Typically, this goes hand in hand with suction power to give us a good indicator for how it's going to perform in real-world testing and environments. So this scored 10 for our CFM, the higher the better. ECOVAC's brand average is actually 10.4, but you'll see it's still pretty substantially greater than the typical average RoboVac, coming in right around 7 CFM. But measurements are one thing. How does it actually perform? So in our carpet deep cleaning test, this got a score of 95 out of 100. That's 5 points better than ECOVAC's brand average and 10 points better than the average RoboVac. Moving right along to decibels, the higher this value, the louder the vacuum is. We always test this on max suction settings on carpet. and you'll see we got a score of around 78.9 decibels. That's what we peaked at. That's going to be just shy of 5 decibels more than ECOVAC's brand average, and almost 9 decibels louder than your typical average RoboVac. All of this is expected with that increased suction power coming out of this vacuum. Will it be noticeably louder than your typical ECOVAC's vacuum? I would say no. You'll be hard-pressed to notice a difference. And compared to your average RoboVac, same thing, 70 to 79, very similar. You'll be able to hear both of the vacuums, right? The average one or the ECOVAC's one. So sure, technically it's louder, but I'd say it's not more noticeable. Next up, we have our battery life measured in minutes, 200-minute runtime compared to the brand average of 230, so about a half an hour less, but still 50 minutes more than your typical average RoboVac in regards to runtime. Next, we have our battery capacity. This is measured in milliamp hours. It helps us to make sense of the previous stat that we just looked at. Typically, larger capacity batteries equal longer runtime. It's not always true, but again, there's a lot of moving parts. You know, obviously the motors and internals, as well as is this mopping, just vacuuming, that sort of thing. But anyways, 5200 milliamp hour battery, that's going to be on par with what you'd expect from a 200-minute runtime. They really don't get any less, especially if they have mopping and that high suction power. You typically see anywhere between 5200 and like 6400 on the flagship upper end premium models. And our overall average tested only comes in at 3,800 milliamp hours. So that kind of gives you a feel for what you're expecting and what you're paying for. Next, let's talk about height. All are very similar to each other when they have this LiDAR navigation module. They're usually right around that 3.8, 3.9, 4-inch mark, and that holds up true with this particular vacuum as well. Now, our overall average is lower because we test a lot of very budget-friendly vacuums too, and those are going to be shorter because they don't have LiDAR navigation. Next, let's talk about bin capacity. There are no verifiable and published specs yet that we could find on the bin capacity, so it's still a mystery, but it's very, very similar to like the T20, the X2, that sort of thing. So with that being said, the brand average is usually around 342 milliliters for its dust bin capacity. I'd expect something similar in that 200 to 300 milliliter range for this vacuum as well. The overall tested is actually higher at 420 milliliters because that includes a mix of vacuums that don't have self-empty. When you have self-empty, they tend to shrink the dustbin because it can go and empty itself when needed, right? So after every clean, that sort of thing, it can empty itself. Whereas if you have one that doesn't have self-empty, they want to make it larger, so you have to maintain it less. Next, water tank capacity measured in milliliters, same thing, no verifiable published data yet. I'd expect anywhere between like that 80 and 185 mark for this unit. That's going to be very typical with, like, again, T20, X2, all of that within ECOVAC's lineup. The overall average runs higher at 235 milliliters because same thing. That includes a mix of mops that don't have the ability to refill themselves. So when they don't have that ability, they carry more water on board. Whereas when they can refill and clean themselves and do all that at the station, they tend to have smaller water tanks on board. Next, let's talk about mop lift height. This is measured in millimeters. Typically, the higher the better because that means it's more clearance between your mop pad and your carpets. So this comes in at 15 millimeters. That's going to be one of the highest available within ECOVAC's own lineup. The average is about 13. Typically, we get that 10.5 mark is really, I'd say, normal and average. And the overall tested is 11. The highest we've seen is from Roborock, and I believe that's 20 millimeters. So 15 is really, really good. Last but not least, let's talk about cost. And boy, oh boy, do I have a lot to say about this particular metric. So first, let's just go over what we're seeing, but then there's something I have to mention. So first, what you're seeing here is this costs a couple $100 more than ECOVAC's average RoboVac product lineup, and it's about twice as expensive as your typical RoboVac. But those RoboVacs don't include all the features that we have with this particular vacuum, so keep that in mind. And if you want to save a couple $100, you can get the T30S non-combo version, right? If you want to forego the handheld vacuum cleaner. And that's one of the kickers here. This is a robot vacuum and mop that washes, cleans, dries, empties, and has a handheld vacuum attachment that also can empty itself and integrates directly into one space-saving base. You're basically buying a cordless vacuum and a RoboVac, and it's still competitive, in my opinion, with the other flagship robot vacuum and mop models that don't come with the cordless vacuum cleaner. So that's what you really need to know. This is going to be a top-of-the-line product, but you're paying for top-of-the-line features and conveniences, but you can still save a couple of bucks if you want to forego the combo, if you already have a vacuum cleaner like a cordless handheld one. But again, that's where this stands, at the upper and top of the market because of the feature set that it's providing. So now let me share with you my final thoughts after using the ECOVACS DEEBOT T30S. You really can't go wrong with this vacuum cleaner. I like it a lot better than the ECOVACS X2 because I'm just a fan of LiDAR navigation. It just gives you a better, more accurate cleaning experience. And I'd argue a deeper clean because the vacuum truly knows where it is, where it hasn't gone, and it just navigates and sees things and processes environments better, in my opinion. Now, with the T30S combo, that's still the way to go if you can afford it because it's so cool to have that integration with the handheld vacuum. Especially valuable if you don't have a cordless vacuum cleaner and you want to vacuum like your couch, table, steps, things like that. This really is an all-in-one package for you and you won't need anything else. Maybe though, I'm just old school. I still prefer to have a legit cordless vacuum cleaner, but the good news here is they actually make the T30S combo complete, and that would be what I would buy if I'm going all in. So T30S for just the vacuum mop, cleaning, washing, all of that, or all the way up to the T30S complete, the T30S combo complete, if you can land one, because that gives you the main body and a main brush roller as well, and that's a really solid vacuum cleaner. But really like the technology, the progression of everything, and how we're bundling now vacuums with our RoboVac, handheld vacuums I should say, that self-empty and integrate with the same base. It just helps to save space around your house so all your devices and your cleaning can be done and managed in one spot. Love the built-in storage, love the handheld functionality to get those areas that your normal vacuum can't get. In regards to improvements for this vacuum, they really advertise a lot about its, lack of tangling. I still experience tangles with this, with the long human hair in my house for my wife and my 2 daughters. It's going to be better, but it's still not perfect. If that's the route you want to go and you just care about tangles, that's going to be the Narwhal Frio is going to be, the Frio X Ultra is going to be what you want for that. They have the best brush roller out there for handling tangles. That's just my experience so far with the vacuums that I've used, but Frio X Ultra for specifically tangles has the best brush out there. ECOVACS is making progress and doing a good job. Smaller hairs especially, they are right. You can see it in their advertising material and literatures. Even some of our own tests, it won't get tangled. But longer human hairs, if you have long-haired individuals in your house, you still will experience some tangling there, so you want to flip it over every once in a while, keep an eye on that, and maintain it. But overall, really solid. Other than that, continuing to improve the object avoidance. I expect that to continue to get better over time for all the makers out there as the databases improve, all of that good stuff. Just a matter of time before those will be really 100% accurate to do a great job sensing every object and obstacle in your environment. But they've come a long way so far, and they still have a decent amount of wiggle room to improve that in the future.